What's up? What's up? What's up, my good family? And welcome to another episode of Apostolic Insight. I am super excited, super fired up about what we're going to be sharing tonight. I think that what we're about to dive into is so important because it's something that we all know, but it's something that maybe we've struggled to surrender to. So you know how we do it. Before we get started, I need you to jump in the chat. Let me know who you are, where you're watching from, and I need you to click share. You're part of the share ministry. You're a part of the share team. Help us get the word out. Let somebody else know. Let some other leaders know. Several of you have said to me on Tuesday nights, you take this link, you send it to your team, and you say, hey, look, jump on now. And so I need you to do that same thing. I need you right now. Start spreading the word. Tell your team, hey, look, it's time to jump on. It's time to plug in. I need you to come in and be a part of this call tonight. All right, we're getting ready to jump into something that is so important, and I don't want you to miss any of it. So take a moment. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and click share. If you're on YouTube, I want you to text it to some people. If you're watching on Facebook, I want you to just tag some of the people that you know and bring them in. All right. I want to jump right into what we're going to talk about today and tonight, because I think I want to give us time to really dive into this topic, because we're talking about pixels over pulpits, why the next church will be digital. And I know some of you are clutching your pearls. What is he talking about? What is he saying? Why the pixels got to be over the pulpit? Why they can't be next to it? Well, we're going to dive into it and we're going to talk about it, because the reality is some of the people that you're called to reach, they're going to have to make that choice. And I want you to understand what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about people choosing digital ministry over in-person ministry, but I'm also talking about people choosing a digital ministry that is not in their city over an in-person ministry that is in their city, because the digital ministry speaks more to who they are, and the voice leading the digital ministry speaks more to where they are than the church that is in person. All right. So I want you to go ahead and click share, and I want you to get that out there, because we're going to be talking about digital discipleship tonight. All right. We've been talking about this. We've been talking about all these things that are coming. And this is shift number 5. We have 7 shifts that are going to hit the church, specifically the Black church, but all churches. And we've been talking about that for the past few weeks. And tonight we're going to keep talking about that, because shift number 5 is that digital discipleship will be perfected. You know, I think we were thrust into it during the pandemic, but I believe we're living in a time and a season now where we're coming to a place where we're learning to perfect digital ministry. We're learning to do it well. We're learning that it's a core part of who we are and what we do. And because we're learning that, I think we're going to continue to see it get stronger. And as a result, the next great revival may not happen in a sanctuary. As a matter of fact, it might happen on a live stream. It might happen in DMs. It might happen on a Zoom call. It's going to be in all these different places. Now, some of you know this and some of you may not. But I have the honor of being behind the scenes for some of the greatest revival movements that are happening right now. All right. Chief probably among them is Mantle Conference. If you've seen Mantle Conference with Apostle Joshua Giles, you've seen that Mantle Conference has just been crazy. I mean, we had about almost 20,000 people this year who gathered in the Kia Center in Orlando, plus people who are online and things of that nature. And one of the things that I do is I build out the registrations, the digital part of that, but I also serve as almost like the digital pastor, if you would. So all the people who are watching online, all the people who registered online, like I'm there with them people. I'm watching those people. I'm talking to those people. I'm engaging with those people. And what I can tell you is that the revivals that are happening in person are also happening in the digital space. I have the opportunity to do the same thing with AI and Apostle Cynthia and Billy and Cynthia Thompson and their conference. I get a chance to be a part of that. Like all these different movements, so much so later this year in October, you're going to hear some more about this. I'm going to be hosting a virtual conference called the Underdog Conference. It's for the underdogs. It's for the Davids, the people who are underserved, undersupported, undervalued, under-resourced, but who have a call. And so we're going to bring the Davids in a digital virtual environment, and we're going to give them the 5 smooth stones that they need to go out and kill their Goliaths, right? And what I'm learning is that the digital space is a real place. It is a real opportunity for us to see ministry happen. And I've had an opportunity to actually see it firsthand, that when we really take it seriously and we get into it, it's a big deal. It makes a big difference. And we've got to get on the cutting edge of that. All right. And so what I want to say to you is, if you believe that digital church is less than in-person church, give me the next 30 minutes or so to convince you otherwise. Because if you believe that the digital is less than, you are already missing out on a harvest that you could have. And I'm going to give you biblical support for this. We're going to walk through it. But I want you to understand, God is moving digitally. And he's looking for leaders who are ready to meet him there. And I want to try and convince you tonight to be one of those leaders. All right. So let's talk about this. What's the myth? What's the disconnect, right? Because y'all know, man, can't nobody demonize something like the church. Oh my goodness. I remember when the TV was the devil, because, we knew the radio. I remember when the internet was the devil. And I remember when them phones and all that stuff, the devil, and technology is the devil and all this kind of stuff. And over time, every single time a shift happens, the Lord uses that shift to help the church reach further. And that's what's happening. So let's talk about the myth and the objections that we've got to overcome versus online church, right? So here's the myth, right? We put real church over here and we put the online church over here, and we act like they're two different things moving in two different directions. And here are the objections that I often hear around online church, right? Well, people just need to be in the building. It's not the same. It ain't like, doing this and doing that and the other. And it's like, all right, cool. I understand that. But digital is also the ability to go into the homes of people who either can't come or don't want to come into a physical space. You can think about it. At the digital age, you could be reaching 50 people in person and 500 people online. Right? Think about it. I mean, I just want you to be practical for a second. And I know sometimes we have these vanity metrics, but when you see your live stream and your sermon, you leave it up for a week and it's got 200 views on it, right? You may see that and just go, whatever. But imagine what 200 people in a room look like. And maybe all those people then watch the whole service. But let's just say if half of them watched your whole sermon, what does it look like to have 100 people online coming and taking out their time of all the things they could watch to watch your service? That's significant. Myth and objection number 2 is you can't disciple people digitally. Yes, you can. Like, how is the church the last institution to figure this out? People started doing online school a long time ago. So what you're telling me is I can go to school online, I can shop online, I can order my groceries online, I can order food online, I can do all of my banking information online, all of my kids do their homework online, I can register my kids for school online, I can get my tag from the DMV online, right? I can do all these things online, I can run my whole business online, and the only thing I can't do online is become a disciple of Jesus Christ. The devil is a lie. Real relationships can be formed digitally. You can do it. People are dating online. People are finding their spouses online. There are ways that we can leverage technology to be able to see God do what he wants to do, but we've got to lean into it. All right, here's myth number 3. Online ministry is just a supplement. Look, it is a supplement. I do believe that online and digital can be a supplement, but I need you to understand that in the next generation, they are going to be more reachable through technology and through screens than they are through pews. Listen, if whenever I speak to a pastor, he says, I want to reach young people, the first thing I do is I go look at his technology. And I look at how well they're doing social media. I look at how well they're doing live streaming. And that doesn't mean that all young people got to have all this technology and stuff. But it does mean, what I do recognize is that for many of them, the digital space is going to be their introduction. That's where they're going to find you. Like that next generation, they keep their phones in their hands. And sometimes while you're preaching, they're Googling what you're saying to see if they can find something else to back it up, right? If you want them to come to your church, they're going to Google you before they come. They want to see the reviews. They want to see pictures. They want to see how people are dressed. They want to see how long you stay in service. They want to see what you're doing. All those different things are happening. And I need you to get this. I believe this with all my heart. If Paul had access to YouTube, he would have wrote 1 Corinthians and he would have done a live stream so he could send them the video. Paul used the technology of his time, and we have got to be able to do the same. All right. I'm going to come to that in a second. And I'm going to break down the biblical framework for what I think it would have looked like in our time and how those parallel. But let's talk about why this shift is so unstoppable to come into the digital space. A couple of reasons, right? Because, we picked up a lot of new stuff during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we picked up a lot of habits. We picked up a lot of things. The digital space is one of them. There are people who are still struggling to be back at work in the office because they were working from home during the pandemic. They loved it, didn't want to go back. And the same is true for everybody. We picked up some things. I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, I learned the value of my time. And I figured out how much time I had wasted doing all these other things that I didn't necessarily need to be doing. I learned the value of slowing down enough to just say, look, I just want to be at home. I just want to be in my house, chilling, relaxing, doing what I need to do. All those things are important, right? And so here's a couple of things and a couple of shifts that have happened. Number one, the rise of YouTube ministries. YouTube now gives people 24/7 access to teaching, worship, and community through comments and live chats. And here's what I'm saying to you. You need to be in a digital space because people now have 24/7 access to be able to meet their need when it rises. There was a time where if you needed a word from your pastor, you had to wait till Sunday or you had to wait till midweek Bible study. But what if something hits me on a Thursday night, on a Friday, when no service is going on, nothing is happening? Well, in the digital space, I got 24/7 access. So I can jump to it right now. I can get into it and I can be good to go. I ain't even got to worry about it. All right. 24/7 access. The rise of TikTok Bible teachers. Now, we love to marginalize people for jumping out there and stepping out on faith. And the only thing is, it's the same thing people have been doing for years. It's just more public now. But there are real teachers. Man, I found this guy on TikTok, matter of fact, just yesterday. And bro is teaching and breaking down the word. Man, I love it. But what's happening is people have figured out how to take bite-sized revelation, and they're reaching millions and millions of people. Millions, y'all. Like, I think I went on my page, and I hadn't been taking TikTok seriously for a long time, probably a couple of months. And I saw that we've gotten like 100,000 views in like the last, I don't know, 90 days or 30 days or whatever. I don't know what the metric was. But it blew my mind. I'm like, man, people are really watching this stuff that we're putting out there. Instagram prayer. There are prayer groups breaking out on Instagram where people are using these private communities and live streams and things of that nature where they're praying with people, right? Many years ago, it used to be the little voice app that people had going. I can't remember the name of it, but people are doing that. Zoom small groups is popular. People are doing Sunday school and small group via Zoom. So now everybody can participate. I was a part of a church at one point. I was helping a church, and we would do Sunday school in the morning at like 9 for an hour. And then as soon as we finished that from 9 to 10, we say, all right, we'll see y'all in about 30 minutes. Y'all come on over here. And everybody would leave home, come to the church for service, right? And it was a thing. The rise of digital churches. I think that's another one. Seeing these churches come up in the digital space. And some of these churches may even start as just communities on GroupMe and WhatsApp and Telegram and Discord and all these kind of things. Like, it's going to happen. Like, I'm telling you, one of the things we're about to see is we're going to see a rise in Christian streamers, right? If you follow culture and you see all these streaming communities, people like Casanat, who just started Streamers University a few months ago, and he had all these thousands of people apply to be a part of learning how to stream. This dude has just completely changed the game. Well, and there's so many more who are doing it. I think we're going to see a rise in Christian streamers, people who are streaming and they're constantly doing life with their audience through their live stream. And we're going to see a rise in that, and it's going to blow up, right? And one of the reasons it's going to happen is because now, as millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha come to life, their expectation is instant access. They were born into a world where if there was something they wanted, they could get it and they could access it immediately. I'm not talking about from like a spoiled place or something like that. I'm talking about from a technology standpoint. They don't understand, man, I want to see this movie. Let me drive across town to Blockbuster, go and rent it, and come back home, rewind it, my VHS tape, and do it. No, they just open Netflix, push a button, and in 30 seconds, it's there. And so that's where they are. And so here's what I want to say to you. Instead of fighting the culture, disciple it. We're not here to fight the culture. We're not here to fight against the people that are here and the way things are. The way things are the way things are. We got to bring kingdom into it. That's why we pray, thy kingdom come, right? We're saying, we know where we live, but show us how to bring the kingdom into the space that we're living in. Show us how to contextualize it so that we can take the next steps and lead people through it. All right. So look at this. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So look at this. Let's talk about the precedent for digital ministry, right? And here's what I believe. I need us to get this. I believe that God always had his people use the technology of their time. I even look at something as simple as when Jesus got on the boat and he pushed back off the shore a little bit so he could speak to the people, creating an echo chamber, if you would, off the water where his sound could be amplified to go out, right? That's the technology of their day, right? So I think there's a couple of examples. Number one, Paul wrote letters. We look at it now, we go like, oh, here's the Bible, here's this, here's that, and the other. But the truth of the matter is Paul was using the foremost technology of his time to share the word and to bring and to disciple people. We've got to do the same. I think Paul's letters were the digital downloads and the ebooks of his day. You mean to tell me if Paul had the ability to make his sermons available more quickly and easily to everybody, he wouldn't have done it? Number two, let's look at the printing press. The Reformation took off because of the printing press. When we got the ability to mass produce Bibles and the Word of God, the Reformation just took off like crazy, because now it was easier for us to go out and make scripture available to everybody. It went from available to a few to available to many, which is what our things do when we go digital. Our sermons that might only be heard by 50 or 100 people in the room can be heard by thousands. All right. Radio and TV. Think about the shift of radio and TV and how many people got reached with the gospel. Right. And I know when we talk about that, sometimes everybody's mind go to the worst of the worst. And we go to the people who abuse it and use it, and the people who are lying and selling, anointed prayer cloths and shawls and all this kind of stuff like that, and this and the other. Right. But what I think about is I think about the countless number of people who attend the church I grew up in. And the way they found it is because every Sunday we did a 5 o'clock live radio broadcast on AM radio with a little buzzing in the background. But people used to tune in and listen, and they loved it. And people would come to church later and say, look, I've been hearing you on the radio. Oh, my goodness. And they would come in, right? We got to understand that. We got to understand the digital frontier. If we're called to do the work of an evangelist, there are billions of people with a B who gather daily in the digital space. Why wouldn't we aim to be there? The digital space is the biggest mission field we have ever seen in history. Why would we not gather there and do everything we can to reach people who are coming through that space? That's what we're called to do. We've got to go into the digital space and be there to reach those who are coming through it. Right? We say this all the time, but the gospel never changes, but the method has to change. The message is sacred. Get this. But the methods are strategic. Hear me. Oh, my goodness. Somebody put that in the chat. The message is sacred, but the methods are strategic, which means that we've got to evolve them to help accomplish exactly what we are called to do. We've got to do it to help us accomplish what we're called to do. All right. So we've got to lean into the sacred message and the strategic approach. All right. So, I've been talking about digital discipleship for a few years. All right. Some of you may have heard this story. Some of you may not. But let me give you some context on me. Right. So there are some things that, some new things maybe y'all will learn about me tonight. So a couple of things for you to know. Right. So y'all know I got my undergraduate degree in business management. Right. So I wanted to always run a business and kind of, do that whole thing. But when I went to seminary, I got 2 master's degrees. All right. So I have a master's degree in pastoral counseling, and I got a master's degree in leadership. And so as I came through those 2 graduate programs, one of the things that I started to dive into more was I was like really into discipleship, especially, and that's in both of those degrees. Like I really spent some time going through spiritual formation and discipleship and all these kind of things. And so years and years ago, I was a part of a church staff back in 2019. And we were discipling people like crazy. I mean, in person, we had about 1,000 people in 18 months join the church, and I was leading the class. So I would teach that class every Sunday, literally every Sunday. We were graduating all these people coming through, and I just really had this experience. And as we were going through, man, it was going amazing. And then one day I went to the pastor and I said, "Hey, I think we should take discipleship online." And he's like, "Nah, man, we doing good. Like, just don't break it. Don't bother. Just let it go." I said, "No, I just feel a sense. I'm not saying we stop doing in person." I said, "But I just feel like we need to do it digital. We need to do it, right?" And we just kept talking about it. He's like, "No. A few months later, what happens? COVID-19 hits. COVID-19 hits. And at that time, we recorded the class. I started, Simple Systems was just getting started, and we started building online discipleship, right? And that's where we started using the term digital discipleship. And when we started talking about digital discipleship, we were talking about making disciples in a digital space. So let's break down what that is. Let me tell you what it's not, right? It's not just streaming on Sunday. I call that an online service, not an online campus. That's an online service. That's just like, hey, look, come watch us have church. That's one approach, but that's not the right approach. That's not the full approach that we want to embrace. All right. That's just come watch us have church. All right. It's not just posting your sermon clips. That's a part of it, but that's not the whole picture. That's not the whole thing. There's more to it than that. It's not just replaying worship sets and taking your worship and playing it on YouTube. That can be a part of it. If your worship is solid and it sounds good, that can be a part of it. But it's more to it than that. When you think about digital discipleship, what I want you to think about is I want you to think about entry points. I want you to think about, how does somebody meet Jesus? How do they join your church? How do they plug into a community in the digital space, right? How do they enter into a relationship of faith if they cannot enter into the building physically? You want to think about entry points. You want to think about pathways. If God sends you 25 people this weekend, what you going to do with them? Because he's not going to be satisfied with you saying, well, they come into church. They in the room, they're here. What are you going to do with them? How are you going to train them? If God sends you 25 people and he says within 2 years, I want them to be walking in the purpose that I put on their lives, how are you going to do it? All right, there's a couple things you got to think about. How are you going to get all 25 of those people to show up in the same place at the same time to be trained? Okay, you can't do that. Well, if you can't do that because all of them got different work schedules and different things going on, and some of them got kids, and some of them work the night shift, and some of them got spouses, and some of them got this. So how do you do it? Well, the easy way is to do it digitally. Because if you do it digitally, it can be available 24/7, right? But you got to map out the path. What's the digital pathway, right? Even for your in-person service, what's the digital pathway? Okay, they join today. What happens next? Okay, they get an email and a text from our system. Okay, what happens next? Somebody call them. Okay, what happens next? Somebody else emails them. We text them again, invite them back to church. Okay, what happens next? We ask them to join this class online. Okay, what happens next? They get a certificate. They come to grad. What is your pathway? What's your pathway? Right? This is important. When you have a clear vision of the kind of people that God has called you to build, and this is important. Let me stop right here and say this. So many of us frame our mission only based on what we want to accomplish, when really we need to, a part of that framing needs to be what kind of people we want to build. What kind of people are we trying to build? What do we want to see? Because it's unfair for us to expect from people what we don't have a plan to impart into them. All right. If you expect something from people, you got to impart it into them. So what's your pathway for growth? What's your pathway? What's the journey? How do I become? Oh man, Pastor, you up there teaching that word. That was so good. How do I learn how to teach the word if God has given me that gift? What do I do? What's your pathway? All right. Also, you want to think about creating systems for care and accountability digitally. Right? How do you care for people digitally? Guess what? Instead of running around town and people not being able to reach you when they need to because you work full time, plus you got this, if you used a digital system, People could book a 30-minute Zoom call with you and you can minister to them on Zoom. We spent the whole pandemic doing that digitally. So you can have care and accountability. Like even for your leadership teams, you know, you have a low engagement from your leadership team and people can't meet often as any other. If you move some of your meetings digitally, one of the things that I would do once a month, we would do a meeting in person. Once a month, we would do a meeting on Zoom, right? Listen, you want to be a church that can function digitally, not just broadcast. See, when you broadcast, you're asking people to watch. But when you really create a digital culture, you're allowing people a chance to be a part of it. So let me give you some examples of true digital discipleship. Here's a few examples. Number one, relationship building. You know, you could have an online new members class hosted via Zoom where people can really connect and get to know each other. You could have virtual small groups where people study a book of the Bible together or read through a book together or whatever it is. You can have live prayer teams on Zoom. You could have all these kind of things happen. That's digital discipleship. You could do spiritual growth in digital discipleship. That means developing leaders. Once a month, you can get on a Zoom call on a Saturday morning with people who feel called to preach and teach and just walk them through the sermon for tomorrow, show them how you got there, answer their questions, and just walk through. That's spiritual growth and development, right? It's helping them go through it. It's doing something as simple as creating. Did you know you can turn your sermons into devotionals? You can take the same sermon you just preached this past Sunday, turn it into 7 days of devotion that you text out to people throughout the week. Hey, look, get in this word. Here's what we're studying for today. That's spiritual growth. Ministry systems. I know y'all gonna be tired of me talking about this, but you can automate follow-up. You can make sure that people who want to get saved can fill out that form digitally. You know, you can engage your community. All those things can happen, but they can happen in a digital space if we commit to it. All right. So y'all know I never want to leave you. I never want to leave you by just exposing the problem, but I want to give you solutions. But let me say this real quick before I give you the solution. I'm going to show you how to do this and how to get started if you want to get started today. I want you to understand you're not just creating content, you're creating connection. You're not just creating content, you're creating connection. And that's what you got to think about in the digital space. How do we create real significant connection? All right. So let's talk about how to do this. So how do I start building out digital discipleship in our church? Or let me give you this, and then I'm going to give you some pitfalls to avoid. All right. All right. Listen, if this is helping you real quick, jump in the chat and let me know this is helping you. All right. Let me know this is helping you. I don't want y'all to be too quiet in the chat. Let me know if this is helping you. All right. So how do you do this? How do you do this? All right. So a couple of things. Number one, you want to map it out. This is important practice for you to grab. I don't care what you're doing, who you're doing it with, who you're doing it for. Before you just jump out there with an idea and you run to people with it and all that kind of stuff, take a minute to map it out. Take a minute and just map out, okay, what is this going to look like, right? And so you need to look at your current discipleship process because your digital process should be a reflection of your in-person process. And if your in-person process is broken, you need to fix it, right? So just go to getchurchsystems.com and click on that button that says Church Systems in a Box. Join the program. We'll help you fix your internal stuff. All right. So you need to get your discipleship process together. All right. What can be translated? You know, what are the things that you're doing in person that you can do digitally? Right. What are the tools you need? What softwares and tools can you leverage that will help you take the next step and move forward? Your church management system. You need a database where you can communicate and do all these kind of things, right? All of that stuff. What do you need? Number two, you need to choose the right tools, right? For streaming, where are you streaming, right? I would say this. I think it's important that in the day we live in, if you have a solid stream, it needs to be going to more than one person, more than one place. I think you should at the very least, be streaming to Facebook and YouTube. At the very least, you need to be streaming to Facebook and YouTube. Facebook, because it's a place for relationships and connection. YouTube, because it's a place for discovery. You need to be using both of those. All right. Another thing, though, if you want to be good in a digital space, you got to be really good at communication. So how do you communicate with your people? Man, there's so many issues in your church that could be cleared up with just better communication. Send out a monthly email, send out a regular text message, send out a WhatsApp, Slack, whatever, Discord, what group me, whatever channels you use, set it up. And then also within those tools, man, automate as much as you can. Automate as much as you can. Like set up some things that can happen without you needing to be there for them to happen. Like you need to set up some of that, right? Now, I rushed through those two because I want to get to this one. You need to assign digital pastors. Now, let's dive into this, all right? And I'm going to talk about this in a minute in the pitfalls, but listen, we got to deal with this. Is that the church has to stop throwing its technology just to people who understand technology and not understand ministry. Whoever is in your digital leadership roles, yes, they need to understand the technology. They need to be able to send out. They need to be able to post. They need to be able to do this. But they still need to be spiritual. Oh, my goodness. They still need to be called, right? They still need to have a sense of mission. Because if not, you get somebody who does the right thing with a different spirit. What you'll get somebody who might be setting up posts and who might be doing all these things, but they do it with a different spirit. You need somebody who does it with the same spirit, who does it with the right spirit. You need somebody who does it in a way that it makes a difference, right? You need that. And so you want to make sure that you have, you can train digital altar workers. One of the things that we have trained churches and denominations to do is how to have a virtual prayer room, where you bring people into a prayer room and you pray with them live in a digital space, right? All of that stuff. We talking about online community managers, people who are checking in on the community and making sure everything is good, people who are doing discipleship and they're greeters and they're ushers in a digital space. All those things really matter. And then number 4, this is important. Make sure you measure the fruit and not just the views. One of the things that discourages so many of you is that you're looking at the views, you're looking at the vanity metrics, but really what you want to look at is the fruit, man. Like if you see one person get saved online, it's worth it. If you see people being discipled and developed, it's worth it. Man, listen, if I go on one of my videos and I got 15 views, guess what? That's 15 real people, and I'm grateful for it. But if 2 of those people take a step and say, man, I want to partner with you in somehow, even better. Measure the fruit, track the decisions, track the right things in your church, even in your in-person. Don't just gauge your church around how many people show up, because I know some full churches that are empty. Listen, one of y'all caught what I said. Somebody caught it. I know some full churches that are empty. I know some churches that are not, that look empty but are really full. And so measure the right things. All right, let me give you this, and then I got to close out. All right, let me give you this. Look at this. Here's some things that I want you to avoid when building digital ministry. And I think it's important that you avoid these because these things can be roadblocks. All right, number 1, don't treat digital ministry like an afterthought. We can tell when you don't put a lot of effort into your digital ministry. Don't treat it like a side project. This is why I use the term virtual campus, digital campus, or online campus, not an online service. Like you got to treat it like it is a core ministry, because if you treat it like a side project, you're going to get inconsistent results. And so this is important that you really put a priority on digital ministry and you put a focus on making it as strong as you can make it. Number 2, don't take the broadcast only mentality. Don't just expect people to just watch. Raise the bar above that. It's not just about watching. It's about being involved and being engaged. It's about more than just watching what we do. Build a culture, build an experience, build touch points throughout the week, right? With your digital ministry, you can, yes, do the live stream on Sunday, but you can also have other things that you're doing. You can text them, you can email them, you can DM them, you can have these different things happening throughout the week. All right. Number 3, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, don't just throw it to untrained digital ministers. Like equip these people to do ministry. They're not just doing technology. That's one of the things we got to break. People, your creatives who you send out, you're not sending them out to do technology. Empower them to do real ministry. Like some of your creatives are some of the most spirit-filled and able people you have. Like I spoke at the Kingdom Government Summit with Apostle Joshua Giles last year. And one of the things that I talked about is I told them, I said, look, we've got to be on the lookout for the apostolic and prophetic leaders who are serving in creative roles. All of the gifted leaders are not going to be preachers. We're coming into a different time. And I think generations, millennials on down are really leading this charge heavy, is that we are figuring out that we can be very gifted of God in these areas that are typically put on the outskirts and still be, I'm fully apostolic, even though you might experience me from behind a computer. Fully. I'm still prophetic. If I get in a room and the Lord is speaking, I will say what he's going to say, and I will release the word of the Lord. And I may not say, and God told me to tell you this. I may not do it that way. But if the Lord starts speaking, I'll tell you what he said. Right? And so what you got to do is, number one, train your digital ministers. But then number two, empower them to be more than just IT people. Empower them to do more than just run with what you said. Empower them to think and to bring the Holy Spirit in them to the table. Empower them. Give them a seat at the table. You're going to take digital ministry serious. They're like your campus pastors. And if they're going to be your campus pastor, you got to bring them to the table. You got to bring them to the table. All right. Number 4 is don't suffer from what I call metrics misalignment. And that's meaning you're judging success just by how many people watch and how many people show up and how many people do this. Don't do that. Instead, see the bigger picture. See the bigger picture. All right. See the bigger picture. Right. See the people being developed and shifted and molded into what God has called them to be. Last but not least, don't take the less than mindset. Digital ministry is real ministry. It is not less than in person. It is real ministry. It is real ministry. Listen, y'all, we're getting ready for the Underdog Conference coming up in October. And again, if you want to be a part of that, it's the underdogconference.com. But we had somebody from South Africa, to register for the conference. And so I'm getting ready to hopefully get on a call with them soon. And I'm going to invite them to be our ambassadors to South Africa, right? Our ambassadors for the conference to help us reach more people there in South Africa, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this would only be possible in the digital space. It would only be possible in the digital space. I'm going to connect with my bishop in Kenya and say, hey, look, I want you to be an ambassador for this conference. And I want you to help our brothers and sisters in Kenya be able to access this, right? I want you to host, maybe that's you hosting a watch party where you're gathering people at the different churches that have the technology and the capability. And I want you to be a part of this conference, right? And we're going to lift up that mission. And as a part of that conference, we're going to come back, to Kenya that following month after we do the conference. But that's in a digital space. Right. I'm about to send out a clarion call and I'm going to invite some others to come and be ambassadors and partners with us for this conference. And I'm going to give them some great perks and some great gifts. And I'm going to honor them in a special way and say, hey, look, I want this to be something we build together, not something I build by myself, because I know digital ministry is not less than. Yeah, I'm going to be in the house with 7 other people, 7 other couples are going to be there with me and LaToya, and we're going to pour into them and we're going to invest in them for a week. But at the same time, we're investing in them in person. We're going to turn on the camera and we're going to invest in some people online. Same way, right? And so I need you to understand this, man. Digital is not a side hustle. It's a soul assignment. It's a soul assignment, but we've got to lean into it. All right. Let me close out here and we can go. Last thing, is I want you to get this. The Black church has always been on the front end of innovation. Always. I mean, from hush harbors to house churches, from radio to TV to tent meetings, all of this we've always been on the cutting edge of technology. We've always kind of innovated, if you would, to get things done. And I won't say we've always been on cutting edge technology, but we've always evolved to fit the moment. We've always innovated to fit the moment, because innovation is not always technology, but we've always innovated. And so here's what I'm saying. It's our time to step into the digital frontier and to take the next step. It's our time to come forward and see the fullness of what God wants to do. Listen, I'm telling you, I have been a part of some of the biggest digital movements that have hit our nation, hit our world. And I'm telling y'all, it's our time to step into the next frontier. You know, I used to watch Star Trek all the time, and they like space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. These are the voyages of a group of people who took it among themselves to go off into new spaces and new places and digital frontiers to make a difference in the world for the sake of the kingdom. So here's my challenge to you. I want you to find one area of your ministry that you can take digital this week. What is an area where you can step up and step in and say, hey, look, let's move towards digital discipleship. All right, I'm going to pray with you. But as always, listen, if you want some help, help is available to you. You can join our Church System in a Box program. We'll give you the tools and the technology and the coaching to come alongside you. There is one big change that we've made. Our boot camp is no longer open. It is application only. And so if you want an opportunity and you would like for me to work directly with you and your team and your church, and you want to be a part of that, then guess what? The application is open, and we've got space for 2 churches right now. We're not taking more than that. But if you really want the help, you can do it. Whatever you need, you can go to getchurchsystems.com and you can plug in. All right. And we're going to talk some more about that. For those of you who are curious about what we do and how we do it, next week's episode is going to be all about that. It's going to be all about the rise of coaches and consultants. And I'm going to talk to you about how coaches and consultants are coming to the Black church and how the Black church is catching up on something that has been happening in other cultures forever. And we've been wondering why other cultures have been outrunning us and outpacing us, sometimes in their growth and how fast they get to mega and how fast they grow and move forward. Well, one of the secrets is coaches and consultants. It's understanding that if there's something that we don't have internally, well, think about it this way. When you want to reinforce the same culture, you just raise up people from within. But when you want to change the culture, you got to bring somebody from the outside. And consultants and coaches are one of the ways you do that. And when you don't engage with outside voices, what ends up happening is you suffer from insanity. You get the same thing over and over again. And you're praying for God to do something different, but you're doing the same things. And we're going to talk about that. So if you need help, getchurchsystems.com and you can find out everything you need to know there. All right, let me pray for you. And then we'll close out. Father, I thank you for providing us with the opportunity to be a part of this shift, this technology shift that is coming to the world in which we're living in and has come to the church. God, all I ask, help us to be faithful stewards of it. Show us not only how to survive, but how to thrive in this new economic system that you have called us to live in. Help us to thrive in this economy. Help us to lead out in this economy. Help us to embrace it for the building of your kingdom. I speak your grace over all of these, your people. In Jesus' name, amen. Listen, thank y'all for being here tonight. If this was a blessing to you, let me know in the chat real quick. And if you came in late, take a moment, click share. Share this with somebody you know needs to hear it. And I pray that they will be blessed. All right, listen, God bless y'all, man. Love y'all. Look forward to seeing you again coming up next week for another episode of Apostolic Insight. Peace.